to the Alter Rebbe, Sakanas Nefashis, like the Alter Rebbe said to Rav Shmuel Munkus. It seems not even in proportion. They're not even on the same wavelength. How could the Alter Rebbe describe it as being a bigger tsar? And that's what we're celebrating today, commemorating today, and that's our Yom Tov today. So l'cheira, the beer is pashut. It wasn't what the Misnagid did. Good. He screamed. He was a Misnagid. He was being a Misnagid. He was a Misnagid, being a Misnagid, being what he is. The Tsar is, before Yutas Kislev happened, the Meiser happened, the imprisonment happened, like the Maggid told Alter Rebbe, and Alter Rebbe understood, because there was a Kitrug L'mayla. Yeah, down here, they were Malshin, there was Malshinusin, but where did everything originate? Because there was a Kitrug L'mayla, and the Kitrug happened for a reason, because the Alter Rebbe went on Mesiras Nefesh, he blazed a new path, he taught a new Eifen and learned teaching Chassidus. He made a whole new Pirsum of Chassidus. Every breakthrough could have consequences. We know in our times, the Rebbe said that he was afraid to print the Samach Vav. And the Rebbe said he was afraid to print the Ayin Beis. And then we saw Das Tachten Yad, there was things that happened, Gzeiris, after both of them were printed, or after it was printed in the Ayin Beis and the Isis Miru Boys. It's a big breakthrough, and obviously when such things happened, and then Klippa jumps back. So there was a Kitrug L'mayla that resulted in the Meiser, and it's understood, you have to go through that. Yutas Kislev, there was a Shichrer Gomer of the Alter Rebbe, because there was a Psak Din L'mayla, that Didan Natzach, that there has to be Mutter, Mitzvah, Legale, Zeis HaChachma, V'ad Rabbe B'yeser Seis V'yeser Eis. Yutas Kislev was the psak din that the kitrug is completely gone, it's finished, it's over. So now that should result lamata that everyone should be chasidim, because we're able to learn chassidus. If after Yutas Kislev, the misnagid is still behaving like a misnagid, he's still screaming against chassidus, he's still giving in to his vices, his lower instincts. That's a Alter Rebbe. This is not because of a kitrug l'mayla. This is because you're using your bechira chavshis to zaina behema. That's a tsar that can't be mitigated. They say a story. There was once two brothers, and like all the two brothers in all the stories, so one was rich and one was poor, right? So the rich brother was making a chasana. And the poor brother is waiting for the chasana, because for once in his life, he's going to get a decent meal. He's never poor anymore. So 3 days before the chasana, he didn't eat anything, because he's building up for the chasana, and he didn't really have much to eat in his house anyways. And finally, it comes the day of the chasana, and he's already koleid mafsheba, and he comes to the chasana. And he wants to get a meal, but everyone else, they ate just before they came to the hall. So no one else is hungry. They have time, they're talking, they're writing the ksubah, they're giving speeches, the meal. And at gate days, he can't wait anymore. He feels he's about to faint. Finally, he runs home. In his closet, he has old rotten herring, and a dried out moldy piece of bread, but it's enough to keep his body and soul together. And he comes back to the chasna, and finally they serve the meal, and it's a whole chasna meal, kiyada melech, like the rich brothers, it was fitting for the rich brother. So there's fancy Viennese rolls and mushroom crepes and tomato soup and stuffed duck. And dessert, and finally dessert, ice cream, and he gets to the dessert, and his delicate stomach that never has any food, can't handle it anymore, and he starts praving chazara. Like we do sometimes eat this Kislev, when the Farbrengen goes good, he starts praving chazara, and Nebuch, the Baal Simcha, the brother, it's his brother, he can't just let him sing, so he has to go, and he holds his forehead, right? That's what you do. He's holding his forehead. He feels guilty also because it's his food. So he's holding his forehead, and all the food is coming out in the backwards order of the way it went in. So the ice cream comes out, and the duck comes out, and the soup comes, the tomato soup, and the mushroom, and the Viennese roll, and finally the Bal Simcha is thinking, oh, my ordeal is ending. Yeah, there's a big pile of it's over. But the guy's not finished. The poor brother, it comes out now the moldy piece of bread and the rotten herring. He looks and he says, this is not my responsibility. This till here was for me. This you did to yourself. The Alter Rebbe said to the Misnagid, this you did to yourself. Till now was a kitrog. The Alter Rebbe played a part. He knew he's going on Mesiras Nefesh. He knew he's taking a risk. He knew he's bringing the kitrog. This you're doing to yourself. This is a bigger tzar. And that's the yontif for us on Chav Kislev. Because the Alter Rebbe says to us on Chav Kislev, there was a time of Gzeiras. There was a time when there was Kitrugim. But the Kitrug is over. Now is Mutter Mitzvah Legale Zeisa Chachma. Now was the Gili Achsidus to every one of us. Now is for every single person, that every single one of us is able and viable to be a chassid, to live like a chassid, to speak like a chassid, to think like a chassid, to feel like a chassid. There's no problems in the pipes. There's no problems in the hashpah. There's no interference. If I'm still a behemoth, if I still see a Schwarzer looking at me from the mirror, that's because I'm doing it to myself. Chav Kislev is the Yoptif, has to make that now don't do it to ourselves. It's not enough that there was a Gzeira Mumaila that Alter Rebbe should be free. It's not enough that there's a Gzeira Mumaila that there should be Gili Achsidus. The Gili Achsidus is there. Now what am I doing? What am I doing about it? Now we have to make sure that we do something about it to ourselves. There shouldn't remain a misnagi that should be kirbecha. But I should take advantage of that nitzachon of the Alter Rebbe and payol mamish in learning more and better chassidus, in learning more and better Tanya. We just started learning over the Tanya. So I'm getting emails these days from Irgun HaTanya, that they're bringing Tanya to hundreds and hundreds of Bachram and Yungelite in Borough Park. Last year, Shabbos Vayishlach, Matzah Shabbos Vayishlach, the Matzah Shabbos before Yitzhak Kislev, they make every year, they make a Heichal Menachem or whatever it is in Borough Park, they make a big Malav Malka for this 1,000 or 2,000 Polish and Litvisha that come, who are involved in learning Chassidus, and they make a big Malava Malka, and they sell them Chassidish Sfarim. I don't know what they did this year, but afterwards was a shtickle Farbrengen. A few people, I didn't speak to most of the people there, but a few people came over to me and they said to me how thankful they are to this organization, to the Shiurim Chassidus, and they were saying how Chassidus changed their lives. These are people, some of them, their families are not even comfortable with it. They're not happy with it. They learn Chassidus because it changed their lives. It's able to change everyone's life. It's able to change our life, but we're learning Chassidus because I'm a Chassid, I learn Chassidus. We're not looking for that Vart and Tanya that's revolutionizing my way of thinking. We're still letting the Misnagid Asher B'Kirbeinu reign supreme. That's the Tsar of Chav Kislev, but now it's Chav Kislev as the Alter Rebbe is erased from the Misnagid Eich. Now has to be that Geula Eich that is what we do to ourselves has to also come to an end. The Chassidus is here. We have to learn Chassidus and learn Chassidus b'Havana, b'Harchava, b'Emek u'V'Reichev. It should be the Yisparnus U'Minei. It should come into our mind and come into our hearts and come into our neshamas and become a part of us. L'chaim u'Lebracha. Ya did I ya 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 did I ya did I ya 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 did I ya 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 did I ya did I ya 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 ay ya ya did I ya 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 did I ya ya did I I just want to say, Maimir Muzgan. It says, Yaakov said to Esav, "Im lovon garti." So Rashi says, "Im lovon garti v'taryag mitzvah shamarti v'lei lomadati mimaysav haron." Yeah, push the Rashi. So I saw a word in Svarim. Yaakov v'barimsech, trying to praise himself, take credit. Lei lomadati mimaysav haron. Says in I forget where, Polish Svarim. Says Yaakov was verkehrt, was being misnatzel. He said, "Take em lovon garti v'taryag mitzvah shamarti." Take hit the time. Abrelei lamaditi mimaysav haram. When I look at Lavan and I look at his enthusiasm and his chayis and his averis, then I see I'm still missing, even though I'm doing taryag mitzvahs. Aber ich habe nicht gelernt von seinen averis wie mit der Tana mitzvah. When I go to a shul, to a minyan, to a mikveh, I see people are very opinionated about who won the election, who's supposed to win the election, who's better, the president, the better prime minister, the better mayor, and who should, everyone, and then guys that was just screaming. And the same guy will come to Farbrengen sometimes, and he has to start a niggin, and he is looking around to make sure everyone's happy that he's starting a niggin, and even after he looks around, he's afraid. He's apologetic and afraid. Which is should be embarrassing. And Yoni Kedusha darfen haben die Tekef. In yesterday's Chitas Tanya, it says that we yesterday we learned the haskamis of the sons of the Alter Rebbe, the haskamis, the haskam of the sons of the Alter Rebbe that is signed by the Mittler Rebbe and Rab Chaim Avram and Rab Moshe. So there's a famous question on these haskamis about the discrepancy between the titles that each of the sons of the Alter Rebbe gave for the Alter Rebbe, which is L'cheira Halei Davar. It's very strange. Why are they giving different titles? They should all give the same title. The Mittler Rebbe writes on the Alter Rebbe, Ben Adeni, Avi, Meiri, V'Rabbi, Kadesh Yisrael. Rab Chaim Avram writes, Ben Adeni, Avi, Meiri, V'Rabbi, Marona, V'Rabbana. And Rab Moshe writes, Ben Adeni, Avi, Meiri, V'Rabbi, Hagein HaChassid. There's other differences, but this is a very striking difference. So it's a famous question. And there's two answers that I know of. One answer I think it says in Shiurim B'Sefer Tanya, and I think the Rebbe said it once by a Farbrengen. The answer is that each one of the sons of the Alter Rebbe understood in the Alter Rebbe according to his level. So the Mittler Rebbe was a Rebbe, hatter the hert in the Alter Rebbe Kadesh Yisrael. Rab Chaim Avram was a Rav, hatter the hert in the Alter Rebbe Maran of Rabbana. And Rab Mesha was a Chassid, hatter the hert in the Alter Rebbe Hagoyin HaChassid. That's one answer. Steht there. And this answer also has an important lesson to us. And the lesson is that to appreciate the Rebbe, it depends on it depends on who we are. Sometimes a chassid could speak about the greatness of the Rebbe. The greatness of the Rebbe, of who the Rebbe is, that could be true. That has nothing to do with you. What you have to know is, what is the Rebbe to you? What is the Rebbe to me? Say, Adinenu, Meirenu, V'Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu means he's my teacher. What did the Rebbe teach me? When did I learn a sikha that changed my way of thinking, that I understood how it changed my way of thinking, that I understood how it revolutionized my way of looking at Rashi, looking at the Rambam, looking at the Gemara, looking at Yiddishkeit. Sometimes you have to learn a sikha, especially the first 4 halakim of the Sikhas. Try to learn it with an open mind. Try to learn it, try to picture the way a Ilamish is learning the sikha, so that you're able to notice and to recognize and to appreciate the revolutions in the sikha of Pasha, how our way of thinking. So what I see in the Rebbe depends on what I see. What did I give? What was I taught? And what was the Rebbe Maimer? That's one point. That's, I think, the point of the first answer and the first explanation in these changes. But there's another answer that I heard a story from a chassid from before Tafshin Yud. He said that he witnessed himself. He said he saw the Rebbe was then the chassid of the Venesia, the Rebbe was then the Ramash, and he saw a chassid go over to the Ramash. Then before Tafshin Yud, he saw a chassid go over to the Rebbe. And the chassid asked the Rebbe this question: why is there changes in the titles that are given? And the chassid suggested to the Rebbe this answer, this famous answer, I guess was already, he said to the Rebbe, maybe this is the answer, and he told the Rebbe this answer. At that time, even though, like I said, the Rebbe at some point himself brings that answer. At that time, the Rebbe was shaylo that answer. With the words, the Rebbe said, was Rab Chaim Avram hat nicht der Hert in der Alte Rebbe Kadesh Yisrael. It's unthinkable. You can't say that for sure. So the Rebbe said a different answer, which is a Meiridik answer. The Rebbe said at that time when this Haskama was written, it was after the Histalkos of the Alter Rebbe. After the Histalkos of the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe was Rebbe. So therefore, Rab Chaim Avram couldn't write on the Alter Rebbe Kadesh Yisrael because the Mittler Rebbe was a Rebbe. On our Rebbe is done our Einer. For the Mittler Rebbe, nothing changed. The Alter Rebbe is always the Rebbe. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe is still the Kadesh Yisrael. And the Rebbe said a similar explanation why Maran of Rabbana only Rab Chaim Avram wrote, because Rab Moshe was already younger. Most of his learning he learned from Rab Chaim Avram and the Mittler Rebbe, so he didn't write on the Alter Rebbe Maran of Rabbana. But this answer made it the answer. He said Rab Chaim Avram couldn't write on the Alter Rebbe, and he was the son of the Alter Rebbe, and for sure he understood the greatness. But now that the Mittler Rebbe is Rebbe, a Rebbe is Doner Einer. Now Kadesh Yisrael is the Mittler Rebbe. I want to tell you a story about this Vart. So I made a Vart, an answer for whoever didn't hear it yet. I made a answer in yesterday's Chitas. But before I tell you the story, first I want to point out, for whoever didn't realize yet, because some of you are maybe a little tired, that this idea is in yesterday's Parsha, last week's Parsha. That Rashi tells us, a Medrash, that the Malachim came and started beating up Esav and his men. So they said, leave him alone. Ben Benoy Shal Avram, is ein Enkel von Avram. They said, Haku, hit him. He said, Ben Benoy Shal Yitzchak. They said, Haku. He said, Achiv Shal Yaakov, and King Mishalonu Atam. He's an Enkel of Avram. That's the Shlach. You want to talk about who he himself is? He's Esav HaRasha. Even if he's Achiv Shal Yaakov, is there Nachal's Esav HaRasha. He's a Rasha. If you want to give him credit for his yichas, Avram, Einikel von Avram is nicht ke yichas. Azun von Yitzchak, Shenekar al Gabi Akeda, nicht ke yichas. Fine, Yaakov is the Bacher Shabbavis. What? The others are nothing, they're chopped liver. The answer is, here was the Nesias of Yaakov. Even though Yitzchak was still alive, but the Rebbe says somewhere that once the Torah is dealing with Yaakov, that was already the era of Yaakov. That was the Nesias of Yaakov. When Yaakov is Nasi, the will say again Messiach sein zu Avram, zu Yitzchak, that's a garnish word, Haku. Mishalonu is Yaakov, our Rebbe is Danar Einer. When it comes the time of Yaakov, either you have Yaakov or you have nothing. There was one of the biggest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. This is not the story. I have to come to the story, but there was one of the big chassidim of the Alter Rebbe who was Reb Zalman Zezmer, who was the mashpia of the one who brought Reb Hillel to the Alter Rebbe, and Reb Hillel said about him the famous word about the cat, about the greatness of Reb Zalman Zezmer. Reb Zalman Zezmer was once by a mimer of the Mittler Rebbe, and after the mimer he said in the Heintige Chassidus hat sich nicht gehört kein Neitz. Which means he heard the Maimer, he heard the Werther, and he said these concepts from Chassidus he knows from the Alter Rebbe. He didn't hear anything new in that Maimer. The Mittler Rebbe either heard what he said or he heard about it. And the Mittler Rebbe had a kpeda. He said, sagt, as in mein Chassidus is nicht da kinayis, ich will ihm schicken in Sibir. That's what his consequences. So it says afterwards came a mishlachas from Parich, from the city of Parich. They were looking to the Mittler Rebbe. They were looking for a Rav, and Reb Zalman Zezmer knew the Mittler Rebbe has a kpeda with him. He sent in Reb Hillel Parich that he should ask the Mittler Rebbe to send him to that Rabbanus. Mittler Rebbe said, "Em velach shikin in Parich, dir velach shikin in Parich." Hence he became Reb Hillel Parich. And Reb Zalman Zezmer. Then there was a ger in the area, and the ger was Chazer l'Surei. And he was mastered all the people. Then it was illegal to help someone become a ger. He was mastered all the people who helped him in his geros, and they were all arrested. One of them was Reb Zalman Zezmer, and he had a court case, and they passed him that he has to go to Siberia. And the story is that he passed away, and once he passed away, so they had a levaya and they buried him, so he got exempted. But here he sent him. Why? Because he said but if it's the time of the Mittler Rebbe, and you're still connecting with this through the Alter Rebbe, so then you're missing in your Makar HaChayas. A Rebbe is Danar Einer. He had this very, very seemingly very severe consequences. So the story that I want to tell you in connection with this line that the Rebbe said, a Rebbe is Danar Einer, is Rab Shlomo Karliner used to travel around to different villages and to spread Chassidus, his Chassidus, and he would get you in Galite to learn Chassidus. Rab Shlomo Karliner is the event for the Gdele Talmidei HaMagid, and the Alter Rebbe once said on him, as there is a steht HaTefel Checher von Elam Haza. So he would go around, and in many villages, in Galite would be Niskarev, they would start learning Chassidus and start hiddenly for conducting themselves according to Minhagei Chassidus. But hiddenly, because their in-laws wouldn't approve of it if they would know, so everything they had to become Cantonists. So one time, the Rabbi Shlomo Karliner was traveling to a village where that village, he had a group of Yingalite that became hidden Chassidim as a result of him. So the Chassidim knew that he's coming, this Yingalite, and they wanted to prepare for him. They knew he's going to want to go to the mikveh. The mikveh in that village was a well. They would go to the well. The well was cold water. So in honor of Rabbi Shlomo Karliner, they wanted to warm it up. How are they going to warm it up? They cooked up vats of boiling water, and they poured the boiling water into the well, so then it'll be warm when Shlomo Karliner goes. They didn't realize that before they started pouring, there was a Lubavitcher, a chassid of the Alter Rebbe that was there in that village, and he was going to the mikveh there. You know, Lubavitcher sometimes go to the mikveh late, or maybe they were doing it early, but Al Kapanim, they didn't pay it, they didn't look closely before they started pouring. By the time they realized he was there, and they picked him up, he was already a bar mina. Nachman al-Tzlan, he was already not alive. They pulled up a corpse. So it was a big bahala. They killed someone. And not only that, it's going to get out. They're going to have to make a levaya. People are going to want to know how it happened. So it's going to come out the secret that they're hidden chassidim. It's going to be a danger for all of them. So normal people, when someone is dead, it's as tragic as it is, but there's nothing to do about it, right? When there's a cherev chada munachas al tzavari shalodem al yisyai shatzma min arachim. But after that, it's over, yeah? When it's over, it's over. But chassidim are not normal people. He's dead. They didn't give up anyways. They took the body and they brought it into the room where Shlomo Karliner was supposed to sleep, and they put it on his bed where he was supposed to sleep. And they waited. They're going to ask him for help. And when Shlomo Karliner came, they told him the whole story. He went into the room, asa masha asa, and he was Machayim Mason. So the chassid got up, and Shlomo Karliner and this chassid were looking at each other. And they had a silent conversation. Shlomo Karliner was thinking, I just brought you back to life. You owe me your soul. You owe me your life, so you got to become my chassid, right? That seems pretty reasonable. It's fair, right? Without him, he would just stay a corpse. The chassid doesn't want to become his chassid. He's for sure appreciative that he was Mechayim Mason, but he has to get out of it somehow. You need to have an answer to that unspoken claim. Finally, the chassid got up. He said, Mechayim Mason kennst du, aber a Rebbe is doner einer. And he left and he went to the Alter Rebbe. And there's a sequel to this story. There was a chassid, his name was Ariel Zimmer, who was, there's a number of letters from the Rebbe to him. He was a tremendous writer. He wrote a lot of the Bitoin Chabad articles, and I heard he worked on some of the Siches. And he had Kiruvim from the Rebbe. And before he came to Lubavitch, he was in a bunch of other groups. He was a Satmar, and he was a Ger, and he was Mizrahi, and he was all over the place. Like it says by Yisrael, that he was served all the Avodah Zarah first, and then he said, Ato yadaiti ki gadol havayim kol elikim. So he went around, and he went around the block, and then until he ended up in Lubavitch. And he passed away young. He became sick, and he passed away young. So when he was sick, for some reason, he got it into his head that he's sick because of the kpeda of some of the other rebbes that he rejected. So then, at one Farbrengen, he said this story. The story has other nuschos. He said it in this nusach. And he said, the chassid said, Machayim Mason Kenstor, about Rebbe is done arena. And he said about himself, he feels that this might cost him his life because he's in Lubavitch. But he said, Rebbe is done arena. There's no choice. There's nowhere to go besides Lubavitch. So this is what the Rebbe said is the pshat in the Haskama, that the Reb Chaim Avram, the son of the Alter Rebbe, couldn't write K'desh Yisrael and the Alter Rebbe by the Mikveh Rebbe because our Rebbe is done arena. And this is what we have to know. It comes Yites Chav Kislev. And we also have other Rebbes. We're not going to Bubba for Shirayim, and we're not going to Bells for a piece of kugel. But we're going to, like it says, we take orders and we let ourselves be governed by the sarsurin, by other foreign forces. It says zaynim achareim. Zaynim is someone who's married and he goes with someone else. That's called zaynim, right? Someone was once Farbrengen in yeshiva, and he said that the Rebbe Rashab said, that's what you need to do first thing if you're a Tamim. You want to be a Tamim, get Krisos Kesev Liishte. So he said, Alter Rebbe demanded get Krisos Kesef Leishte, wegen the Shiksa hat nicht gerat gone. That goes without saying. That's not the Chiddush of Tev Chitzmimim. The Ishte, the Yodim shall heter in the world. That's what you need Tev Chitzmimim to be Mechadish to you. So we have the Zaynim Achareim as if we're married to godliness. We're married to Chassidus. We're attached to Likus. And we have Ave Zores, V'yirei Zores. That's the Levavchem V'nechem is causing us to be Zaynim Achareim. On that we have to know that our Rebbe is done our Ein, that we're letting ourselves have other forces governing us, and we have to take the message from yesterday's Chitas that Rab Chaim Avram couldn't take Kedusha, the Alter Rebbe, who was a Neshama Chadasha with all the milas that we don't even know how to assess and how to understand. And nevertheless, when it's the time of the Mitzvah Rebbe, our Rebbe is done our Ein, Allah has kama v'kama lower things on Weltsachen. I heard a story, just to finish with this story. There was in Russia, there was the group of Chassidim, in this idea, there was the group of Chassidim that were together. Mendel Futterfass was one of them, and Rab Michal Veshetsky was one of them, and other Chassidim, few Chassidim, and the Rivnitzer Rebbe was part of the group. Even though he wasn't a Lubavitcher, but he was part of their group. He would daven with them, and he would Farbrengen with them by their Kiddush. And Mendel Futterfass held of him very strongly. He would do askanas with him, and there was a few stories with them together. Anyways, the Chassid of Michal Veshetsky, his wife was sick once, and some of the other Chassidim in the group, they said to him, you should ask the Rivnitzer Rebbe for a bracha. There was no contact, no communication done with the Rebbe, with the Friedrich Rebbe. And he said, at least ask for a bracha. He said, Chas v'shalom. There's a Rebbe. If I can't reach the Rebbe, I'm not going because of that. There's the story with your pillow. If you don't have a lulav, it's the Neman HaBezin. Yeah. Kapanim, he said, Shumei Finot. Fine. Came Shabbos by the Kiddush, that Shabbos. And the Rivnitzer asks this Chassid, how's your wife? Yeah, I guess he heard something. He says, how's your wife? But the Chassid didn't want to get a bracha from the Rivnitzer. A Rebbe is done her einer. So he said to him, my wife is Baruch Hashem. She's fine. So he said, Baruch Hashem, then the Eibusha should help. She should be fine for another 20 years. Years later, his wife passed away in America already, I think. And wherever, and Mendel Futterfass came to him to be Menachem Avil. And when he came to be Menachem Avil, he says to him, remember that story? And he said she should be fine. Now is exactly 20 years later. He said, how could you not be? He said 20 years, and it's 20 years. It was 20 years later, she passed away. He went to Menachem. So he says, yeah, as jene Nar wollte sich nicht reingemischt, wollte Rebbe gehalten als 8 Jahre mehr. So our Rebbe is done our Ein. We have to know in big things and holy things, that's not where our Yitzhahara is. But there's other things where we run after our Achrei Levavchem, Achrei Nechem, our Ave Zoris, V'yirei Zoris, Abnei Shabala Kaches, Shnei Bana Iloila Avodim, Ave Zoris, V'yirei Zoris. Und das darf mehr wissen, es ist doch kein Sach, sondern nur der Rebbe und der Eibishter. L'chaim u'brach. Ya 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 la da ya 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 la da ya 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 ya. Okay, you sing. Okay, I'm finishing off because I want to say two things before I finish. One thing is Yitas Kislev has a central theme, and the central theme of Yitas Kislev is Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. And the Mamorim of Yitas Kislev B'Harchava Gedela explain to us the idea of Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. What does it mean a P'tiyah B'derech Milchama, and what does it mean a P'tiyah B'derech Shalom? And we have to learn, everyone for sure learned at least one of the Mamorim, but to learn it properly. Meiredik Mamorim, Meiredik Biurim. Especially the Melukat Vav, the last Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, has a hemshech. The Chanukah Maimer and Melukat Vav is a hemshech to the Yitas Kislev Maimer. So anyways, you have to continue learning it, because to learn the second Maimer and the hemshech, you have to be into the first Maimer and the hemshech. What's the basic idea in the Chassidus of Pada B'Shalom Nafshi and the Yud Kislev Maimerim and the Yitas Kislev Maimerim? Is that there's P'tiyah B'derech Milchama. P'tiyah B'derech Milchama is when you have to engage with the enemy and fight with the enemy. The example of that is Tefillah. That Tefillah, Shas Tzleisa, Shas Kirva, B'Tzleisi, B'Va'usi is Tefillah. Tefillah is an union of Milchama, because by Tefillah we're warring, we're fighting with our Nefesh HaBahamis, engaging with our Nefesh HaBahamis, and convincing the Nefesh HaBahamis that it's better to love the Eibishter than to love a pie of pizza, a slice of pizza, or anything else, or our more sophisticated Yetzaharas that some of us managed to develop. So because we're engaging and convincing, and the Nefesh HaBahamis isn't there, he's somewhere else, so there's a conflict, there's an engagement. That's a P'tiyah B'derech Milchama, that's a Krav, that's a Milchama. Pada B'Shalom is when there's no engaging. Pada B'Shalom is that I have such an excitement about Elikos that automatically I don't have the capacity to care about anything else, because nothing else is Teifus Makim, there's only the Eibishter. In Chassidus it says, the Taich, we say in Davening, V'yached levavenu la'ahava l'yiras shmecha. The simple Taich is, V'yached levavenu, make me only love the Eibishter and only fear the Eibishter. I shouldn't love and fear anything else. In Chassidus it says the Taich is that it should be Nizgala, the Ava Pnimis, the Ava from Pnimis Alev to the Eibishter, and the Yira from Pnimis Alev. Should be such a love to the Eibishter that it's impossible to love anything else in that way. That it's automatically Yachid, it's automatically V'yachid, it's alone, because nothing else can be loved with that intensity. Pada B'Shalom is that we have that intense excitement about Elikos that automatically we don't care about anything else, because there's nothing else that we could care about in that way. And Chassidus and some of the Mamorim go at length how each one has a Maila. There's a Maila in engaging with the Nefesh HaBahamis, there's a Maila in Tefillah, in Tefillah when it's with Chaya and with Naran, and there's a Maila in Pada B'Shalom, in Yechida, and in Teira, and what each one of them are. But Yitzhak Kislev has the theme and the emphasis and the Kach in Pada B'Shalom Nafsh. Pada B'Shalom has to be brought down by all of us in Aveda B'Peyam, which means we have to find by ourselves, at least sometimes, when we're able to relate with that excitement, that we don't care about anything else, that we care about Alakus. In 770, there was a box. When I was a Bacha in the man, this was in Nun Aleph, Nun Beis. There was a box, that could be it's still there. There was a brown box on the wall of 770 on the Eastern Parkway wall, near the back of 770. Then in later years, that was the box where they had the Chayrims and the Isurim and the Machois or whatever. It was a box that was called Hamaisa Huayikr. Could be it still has that title now. I don't know. I haven't looked. The box had every week on Sunday, on Matzah Shabbos, or on Sunday, there was one page where they put all the Heirais Lemaisa from the Rebbe, from the Farbrengen of that Shabbos. Today, there's a beautiful publication on Maisa Ho'ikr that they put out on Yantif, all the Heirais Lemaisa from collected from a bunch of years of that Kufa, of that Yantif, or whatever it is. But then was a Maisa Ho'ikr, the Heirais Lemaisa from that Shabbos Farbrengen. All of them are in that page, in that box. I remember one Shabbos, there was a box, there was a paper in the box, one line from the Shabbos from that Farbrengen. The Hira Lemaisa was Legales HaYechida Shebenefesh. That was the only practical Hira that they could find from the whole Farbrengen, Legales HaYechida Shebenefesh. What's Legales HaYechida Shebenefesh? Yechida Shebenefesh is Yechida Liyachta. Yechida Shebenefesh is we have that capacity, that level of our neshama, that state of our being where there's nothing by us except the Eibishter. Yechida Liyachta, Cheshayna Yechida Liyachta. And we have to sometimes be in tune with that. We have to sometimes be in touch with that. And that's the Pada B'Shalom, that when there's nothing else, then automatically I don't have to fight with my Yetzer and with my Nefesh HaBahamis and with my struggles, because it's Pashat. That's all there is. There's nothing else. And I want to just finish off with a story that I heard recently that maybe has nothing to do with anything, but it's a new story that I just heard in the past few months. There was a family of shluchim overseas, and Loyalenu, they lost a child. It was their 7th child, and passed away, baby. And the family came to New York. They were making an upsherish, and they went into Yechidus. And during the Yechidus, the Rebbe was very mekarev them. The Rebbe gave them a scissor for the upsherish, and he was very mekarev them. And I spoke to them a few minutes about the upsherish, and then the Rebbe said like a sicha. He spoke for 5 minutes, and they said it was like a sicha. And the Rebbe spoke about how they have to have more children, and how children bring life. Children bring chayus and chayim, and that's life. That was the teich. And then the Rebbe said they were planning to be in New York for a week, for a while. The Rebbe said they should go straight back to Europe, to wherever they were. Fine. They went straight back. On the plane already, the wife wasn't feeling well. As soon as they came back, they took tests. And they found that Leolenu, she had Yanamach. Very serious. And already they had one answer. The Rebbe told them to come straight back. Had they not come back, they wouldn't be able to travel because of how bad it was by here. And they would be stuck in New York. And, they lived in... So the doctor said to her, you cannot become, one of the things, you cannot become pregnant. You have it very bad. We're going to give you very aggressive treatment. And you have to make sure not to become pregnant because that will endanger you and the child. And he said, you have to take this seriously. If I'm warning you, if you become pregnant, then I'm not taking you as a patient. I'm just going to send you to palliative care, which at that time meant they'll just prepare you for the end. Fine. So the husband heard what the doctor said, and he was in a big dilemma. The Rebbe just spoke to them so strongly about having children, but now the doctor says that that's very not a good idea for them at their stage. So he went to Reb Mendel Futterfass, who was in town at that time, and he told him, what should I do? Good question, right? So Reb Mendel Futterfass gave him a patch. He said, after hearing such words from the Rebbe, you have a question? You shouldn't have a question. I did that. So they were Chassidim, and they listened to Reb Mendel Futterfass's advice and to the words of the Rebbe, and not to the doctor. And shortly after, she was expecting. And they went to the doctor, and the doctor obviously got very angry at them. And he said, I warned you. And he said, I'm not dealing with you anymore. And he sent them to palliative care. They went to palliative care, and palliative care has to try to make the disease more bearable until the end. It's not trying to cure it, it's trying to, but they still have to know exactly what the disease is in order to choose their form of treatment of palliative care. So they took their tests, and there was nothing there. So they sent it back to the doctors. Impossible. They're testing and they're testing. Finally, they decided and they concluded that the hormones from her pregnancy, the new hormones, killed the disease. That's the nature. The hormones have this thing, and they killed it. That's why Taka has no disease anymore, even though she had it before. So it was exactly what the Rebbe said, that the children's chayas, it was literally her chayas begashmias from listening to the Rebbe and not listening to the doctor, and that even came down in Teva and in Gashmias, that's what killed her disease and brought her continued Arichas Yamim V'Shanim Tevis. So we know that the first mitzvah in the Torah is Pru Revu, says in Dayim Yeh Machnoch Hayid Machnoch HaChasid. And in a more general sense, his children is my banim mitzvahs, the Gemara says. And that banim is the union of Torah mitzvahs. My Tevim is the banim, the benu bas, and Ava V'yira is benu bas. All in yanim of Tevim Kedusha is banim, is the Pru Revu. And sometimes we think that, no, we have to worry about the world, what the world says, and what the doctor says, what the Teva Ha'ilam says. The Rabbi says, if you're Meisif and Tev and Kedusha, then that's what gives you Chayos, and that comes down even in the Kalim of Teva, the Kalim of nature, that breaks through all the Hagbolas of nature, and it's a Teva itself, it changes the Ra to Tev and the Meitzer al HaMerchav. It's B'meila, it's Yutas Chav Kislev, it's the Geula, and the Alter Rebbe said that everyone who's Mishtatev B'Simchasei, he's going to schlep us out min ha-Meitzer al HaMerchav, u'min ha-Geshem al HaRuach, u'min ha-Gehenim. So we should all make our Hachlotis Tevis to add in our Pru Revu Beruchnius, and to add in our Hafatzas Teira Vayados, and into our learning Chassidus and understanding Chassidus, and bringing Bepnimius Chassidus according to the way that was Nigzar on Yutas Kislev. And Alter Rebbe should do what he promised to take us min ha-Meitzer al HaMerchav u'min ha-Geshem al HaRuach u'min ha-Gehenim. We should all go out from all our Hakbolis and from all our Gehenims and from all our Gashmis, all our infatuation with Gashmis and all our Mitzarim, and from the Iker Meitzer of Golos, we should go take it from Yad Mamish lemismach Geula leGeula, to the Geula Amitis Vashlema, take it from Yad Mamish. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha, and the Zochene Farbrengen zusammen, Gesundheit und Freilichkeit, and the grace of Farbrengen for Mashiach Zikenu, Mashiach now. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Good Yomtiv, a gute Nacht.
Yomtiv.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Could always send me a text. I have it. I could use it for Farbrengen's. Pleasure. Should I leave it on if people want to chat? Continue Farbrengen?
I don't think so.
Okay. I got Yomtiv.
Good Yomtiv. Thank you very much.